Y'all, the level 180 Darkmoor update is officially out on test run, and you know what that means, y'all. There are new spells for every single school. Now, they're treating main storyline spells a little bit different this update. Not only do we have new 10 pip spells for every single school, but you can use spellments to make them do two different things, and you can combine them with shadow spells to make new 2 pip shadow enhanced spells for every school. That's a total of 3 new spells for every single school. I thought I'd go through them, talk about what they do, talk about how they're gonna affect the game. Starting right off with the new The Tower spell for Storm. Now what you see is the top path of the spell. It is a very, very powerful 10 pip spell that does both a Storm Blade and a weakness. Now chat, this is very cool to me because right now we already have a 10 pip spell, right? Storm Owl. It's kind of iconic. It does at minimum 1450 damage, but it could do nearly 1600. We're finally seeing a way essentially to trade off some of this pure damage, and we're getting some really good utility out of it. Both a damage weakness and a damage blade. I would say in general that blading spells are easier to use when they're lower pip because you want to combo it with the spell that you want to buff out of it, if that makes sense, right? That's why a lot of people like to catch of the day into a big hit, because catch of the day is a very cheap hit in blade. But if you catch someone slipping, this is one of the only ways right now, in my opinion, that Storm can both be offensive and defensive. Very cool concept for a spell. But the power upgrades don't stop there. This is the bottom path for the new The Tower spell, and what you're looking at is the first ever quad heal clear for Storm. So what a heal clear is, right? If your opponent has a heal over time, certain spells can clear them and turn them into stuff. Storm's best heal clear before this update was a triple heal clear, meaning if your opponent had 3 heal overtimes on, you could get rid of all of them and turn them into healing. That's what Storm King art does. Now for 10 pips, you can get rid of up to 4, and each heal that you clear gives you a 40% blade based on the school of the caster. That is right, y'all. That chromatic symbol on the spell means if a death were to use this, they get a death blade. If a life were to use this, they get a life blade. It also means that these should be definitely cross-trainable. This is not just a Storm-only spell. That is very exciting. Now, besides these 2 10 pip spells, let's say you were to combine this with a shadow spell, you can make a new 2 pip shadow enhanced spell. This is crazy to look at. So like every shadow enhanced spell we're going to be talking about today, they use a new backlash mechanic, meaning you have 3 rounds to reduce backlash 1 turn at a time. And depending on the pact associated with your shadow spell, you could either, you know, reduce your backlash with one thing or another. What this spell is saying, right? It'll do about 700 damage. It'll give you a blade based on your school. That stuff is guaranteed. But after you cast it, you start with the risk of taking 15% of your maximum health and backlash. If you want to reduce it, you have to consume heals on your opponent. That's what this specific backlash reducing thing on this spell is. So ideally, you want to get rid of 1 heal on your opponent every round for 3 rounds to take 0 backlash. That being said, we're looking at new ways to do damage with as little as 2 pips and a shad now. I think that's really, really cool. I also think this is one of the craziest heal counters I've ever seen. You could literally be at just 2 pips and a shad. Your opponent can have 3 heal overtimes, and instead of having to wait for multiple rounds to clear all of it, you could just use this new shadow enhanced spell and just clear it as you go and not take lash and even get a hit and a blade out of it. Very, very cool concept. I actually think I like this better than some of the other shadow spells that we've seen that got teased last week. This seems like a very functional utility that uses a shadow spell. Might be really worth the backlash, especially in PvP with a lot of heal spam going around. Moving on to Life's new 10 pip spell, The World. Now this spell is very, very simple. It hits for a lot of damage, and then there's a little bit of extra damage that it does in the form of a bomb overtime. Now a bomb overtime simply means that it does damage eventually all at once rather than little by little every turn. So what the spell is basically saying is it does 720 damage, and then it does 210 damage in the form of an overtime in 3 turns. What is very new about the spell, however, is the extra thing that it does. It gives you a defensive aura. This is basically a 10 pip hit that also gives you a brace at the end of it. I'm gonna assume that's what this does. So you get a lot of upfront damage, a future shield break, and a brace, all for 10 pips. Very, very usable spell. Now, weirdly enough, the bottom path, I guess, of this 10 pip spell is a quad quad damage over time clear. Now that already exists in the form of Spiny. You do a big triple dot and then you just clear a bunch of dots on yourself for Pip. Well, I guess instead of clearing a bunch of dots for Pips, now you have a way to clear dots and do extra damage. So what this spell's saying is it'll do 625 damage, and then for every dot that you clear, it'll turn it into a dot onto your opponent. Now, while this is a cool concept, I am really turned off by the fact that this also creates bomb dots, but they explode in 6 rounds. Meaning, even if you get a very punishing dot counter out, you have to wait 6 rounds to get that damage. That is very inconvenient in PvP and PvE, especially considering you might go against someone that removes the dot before it does any damage. Now, the new 2-pip shadow spell for life. This is what you get when you combine the base spell with the new shadow spell that they're giving to life. It doesn't seem as crazy as the shad for storm. I guess reverse world, the new shadow enhanced life spell, does a little bit of damage, does a bomb dot in 3 rounds, very similar to the top hat. But I guess the real reason you would use this is for the pact that reduces backlash after you use this. This gets rid of a dot on the caster for 3 rounds, 1 at a time, essentially. Now, if you don't have dots on yourself, you are taking 15% backlash. However, every time you remove a dot on yourself for the 3 rounds after this is out, you reduce 5% at a time. So again, it's kind of similar to the storm one. It's a very, very punishing dot counter that you can literally do for as simple as 2 pips and a shad. But I just don't think dots are the same as hots. I feel like sometimes if you're only removing 1 dot at a time, you might actually be taking way more damage than you really would want to. And Testrom comes with other really punishing dot counters, so I'm not sure this one will shine as much as maybe other shadow enhanced spells that we're about to talk about. Now, the mid spell has a really cool name, the Emperor. That's what this new top hat spell looks like. Very, very cool top hat spell. It does, with an enchant, about 1300 damage, which is very, very comparable to Celestial Calendar. And just like life, this is a hit and a bomb dot, meaning you can expect the damage on the second bit of that in 3 rounds in the form of a damage over time. It doesn't break shields every round though. And as a bonus, you also get an extra 35 trap that's based on the school of the caster. Now, weirdly enough, right, because of that bomb dot being myth, I feel like a myth using this, you either have to use that trap, that myth trap that you get from the spell immediately, or the bomb dot will take it up and it's not really that good of a hit. So I'm not really sure how much synergy the bomb dot has with the trap. That being said, let's say it wasn't a bomb dot, then the trap would literally be useless because the dot would immediately use the trap, if that makes sense. Now, the bottom path does seem to be a little bit better, at least. This is a shield clear that also is a bomb dot. So now, obviously, this is where the symbols in this game can get a little crazy, but what this spell is saying, right? This spell will put 3 dots on the opponent, right? And basically, they will total up to over 1,000 damage, about 1,050. And you'll get all that damage from all of those 3 overtimes in 6 rounds. That's what that little 6 on this card is. In addition to that, you'll also clear shields up to 8 on your opponent, and for every shield you clear, you turn it into a 35 trap based on your school. I think the best spell to compare this to is Myth King Art, if y'all know how this works. This is also a bomb dot, but it clears a bunch of weaknesses and turns them into traps. We essentially have a 10-pip version of this, except it's a dot with shields, and instead of being just 2 dots, this is a lot. This is 3 dots, meaning you need a much more punishing dot counter to get rid of the bottom path Emperor. Now, if you were to combine the 10-pip Emperor with the shadow spell, you could also make this new 2-pip Myth Shadow Enhanced spell. Now, this spell, in order to not take backlash from this, you need to clear 3 shields, 1 shield at a time for 3 turns after casting this on your opponent. This is essentially a really good shield counter for very, very cheap if you don't want to take backlash. But it's also a pretty decent spell just anyways. This is a very, very cheap hit and double trap spell. So again, this little chromatic symbol means whoever casts this, they're gonna get traps for their school. I could see in PvP or PvE, if you were to be able to make this, you could literally get rid of weaknesses and shields and get a really, really good buff for just 2 pips and a shad. So definitely very good spell that's worth the 15% lash, but also if your opponent has shields, you get a very, very punishing hit and trap that also you take no lash from, because you'll reduce lash every round that you clear a shield on your opponent. Moving on to the new death spell, Mortality. Now, the top path is a hit that gives you both a death blade and a tower shield. I think this one is pretty self-explanatory, but this is very similar to Storm having both a blade and a weakness, except death is a shield school. So you get 800 damage, you get a really good blade, and you get really good defense in the form of a 50% shield that works on any school that's hitting you. And the bottom path is the second quad heal clear that death has had. We've seen Bond, which turns every heal that you counter into infection. But now we have a spell for 10 pips, which is quite a bit, that can hit and clears up to 4 heals for shield. So every heal that you clear will give you a tower shield. Now, if that mechanic looks familiar, it's because we have it already. It's literally just Skeletal Pirate, but instead of maxing out at 2 heals, you can get rid of up to 4 heals. That's basically all mortality is. Now, however, if you were to combine mortality with one of the new shadow spells that we learned in Darkmoor, you can make a 2-pip shadow enhanced spell called reverse mortality. And this is a hit that gives you 2 different 45 shields. So a very, very good hit and defensive move. And in order to reduce lash after using this, so you don't take 15% of your maximum health, you have to remove heals on your opponent. Every round for 3 rounds of this out, you have a chance to reduce lash by removing a heal on your opponent. The best time to use this would be after someone does a spell that puts 3 heal overtimes on them, right? So you could use this at 2 pips against someone that's rebirthing, have some defense, and also have a way to clear heals while reducing lash. Lots of utility packed into all of these death spells. Moving on to balance. This is a new top path, the balance spell. Now, we actually saw the teaser for this, but I did not expect it to be doing all this. But this is yet another bomb dot spell. For some reason, Life Myth and Balance all got bomb dot. But this does 745 damage, and then it does another little bit of damage in 3 rounds in the form of a damage overtime that doesn't break shields every round, right? Not a normal dot. And you also get an extra weakness thrown in, because why not? So you're looking at a lot of damage with the weakness added on for 10 pip. Now, I will say this, compared to Sabertooth, which takes a pretty massive hit in damage for all the shields that it gives you, this is actually a better hit if you're willing to wait the 3 rounds for the full force of the damage. But the bottom path, in my opinion, is where the real story is. Now, this is a gambit for balance. They don't really get a lot of these, right? Balance is more about echoing and that type of stuff, like, you know, swap it. It's very rare that you clear stuff, essentially, but this is a gambit, meaning you have to clear stuff that could help you. But here's how the spell works, right? For 10 pips, you get 840 damage up front, and then for up to 4 weaknesses on your opponent, you can give up weaknesses to get even more damage in the form of, again, a bomb dot. So the way the weakness to bomb dot conversion works is, let's say you clear 1 weakness, you'll get 1 bomb dot. If you clear 2 weaknesses, it might still be 1 bomb dot, but eventually it'll hit a point where there's so much damage that you're getting for all the weaknesses you're clearing that you'll get multiple bomb dots. The number of dots is important because there are certain spells that give up dots for extra stuff. And if you want to combine a weakness gambit for dots with one of those, it might be helpful to, like, you know, do that. So this will require testing to know if it's meta in PvP, because you got to go through all the trouble of putting weaknesses on your opponent to get the full value of this spell. And now the shadow enhanced version of this, right? This is what you get when you combine Wheel of Fortune with one of the new shadow spells in Darkmoor. We're looking at a very weird hit. This is actually a spell that does more damage in the form of the bomb dot than the actual upfront hit. So it's almost like a Minotaur, but the hit is delayed. And the way this works, right? You get 400 damage, and then you get 2 dots that total up to 600 damage, and they will both detonate, I guess, in 5 rounds. Like all bomb dots, this comes with the risk of your opponent removing it and you getting nothing for it. So I still think you got to take that with a grain of salt. However, I would argue this spell, like all shadow enhanced spells, could be very usable if you fulfill the thing that I guess, like, you take backlash for. And the way to reduce backlash on this is just to give up weaknesses on your opponent. In a hypothetical world, you could put a 3-fold fever or a triple weakness that you learn at Niles onto your opponent, and then you have a way to literally take no lash while doing a lot of damage. I don't love the fact that you have to put weaknesses and it's bomb dots. I feel like it's a lot of risk for not that much reward. Moving on to the fire spell, we see a continuation of a pattern where these 10-pip spells do multiple things that are related to the school identity of the school they're from. This is a 10-pip spell that hits for 800 damage, very good damage compared to what we're actually used to up front for fire, believe it or not. And what I really like about this, you get a 3-round heal on yourself, so that's pretty cool. You could actually give that up for something. It's like a combo starter almost. And you also get a bonus 40% fire trap added onto it. It's like Brimstone and the Divum spell all combined for 10 pips. You get that heal identity and the trap identity for 10 pips. But the bottom path, in my opinion, is a much more heal heavy spell. So what this spell does, still does a lot of damage, close to 900, but then it gives up traps on the opponent and turns them into heals on self. I'm gonna assume that for every couple of traps you give up, you get like another heal over time, but these are very big heals, y'all. 720 healing just means that the more traps you clear, the more monumental the healing from the spell can get. Now, while trap counters are a big part of PvP right now, I would say putting traps on your opponent and then giving them up to do stuff, I really don't think a lot of schools even do that. This could be one of the first times we've seen fire really be able to do that. I could imagine the healing could go nuts if you just put something as simple as like an elemental trap on your opponent, and even after using the fire trap on that elemental trap, you still have a storm and an ice trap that you can give up for healing. That could be really cool. But the healing only gets crazier with the new 2-pip shadow enhanced spell that fire gets. Now, if you combine the 10-pip fire spell with one of the new Darkmoor shads, that's how you get this spell. Now, this naturally hits and gives you the heal right away. However, you have the risk of taking 15% backlash from this, and the way to reduce it is very similar to the bottom pad spell, to have traps on your opponent that you're willing to give up. Now, just like with all the other shadow enhanced spell, you could only give up one thing per round, and you have to do it every round for 3 rounds to reduce backlash. My big concern with this spell is, right, yes, the healing is beautiful, but what if you have traps on your opponent when you cast this? Your opponent sees you do this, and then they remove the trap. Then the question becomes, does the healing make up for all the backlash that you've taken? I think it could. However, that's like an extra question that you have to ask before you guarantee cast this and think there's no there's no backlash or trade-off. And finally, we have the new Hierophant spell for ice, the new 10-pip hit and shield and trap. This spell is really, really cool. It does 800 damage, and then it gives you a set shield based on the school of your opponent and a trap for your next hit. This is a 40% ice trap and a 60% set shield. Very, very usable in a wide variety of scenarios, PvP and PvE included. And as if all of that's not enough, the bottom path is a very punishing blade counter. We're looking at a 10-pip spell that hits super hard and turns every blade on your opponent for up to 8 blades into set shields. This is literally exactly what Frostbite does, except for 10 pips instead of 5. But in my opinion, if someone's not blading too much, I think Frostbite's better. But if someone's doing like a blade into the blade into the blade strategy, running 1 or 2 of this new bottom pad spell, this could be used on any school, right? You could see literally no way to deal with all these shields. Literally, there's no spell that could easily account for all the shields that you're gonna get. This could be a very, very good anti-PvE spell in PvP. And finally, if you were to combine the new 10-pip ice spell with one of the new Darkmoor shadow spells, you can make a new 2-pip shad that does a hit and gives you 265 set shields. So again, if you're confused about the chromatic thing, let's say my ice was facing a death enemy. I could do this new spell. I'd get 400 damage and I'd get 260% death shield. And the way to not take backlash with this is to remove enemy blades. Ideally, you remove 1 blade per round for 3 rounds to take no backlash. Obviously does require your enemy to either already have blades on themselves or just put them on for no reason, I guess, after you cast this. I really think it's more of a reactive move because the ice can't put blades on their enemy. Hopefully this video explained all of the new spells. Y'all, I will be using these spells and making sure that y'all get that content, seeing these spells in action ASAP. But in the meantime, turn on noties so you don't miss any of the covers. There's a lot of things to talk about this week, including Darkmoor Test Realm, including the gear, including the spells, the jewels, and even stuff related to console. There's going to be a video every day for the foreseeable future, so turn on noties so you don't miss any of it. Let me know if I missed anything. Let me know what y'all's favorite spell is. As always, drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome. See y'all soon. And yeah.